I also have a very strong philosophy that a happy team makes happy patients.
The Colorado dentist on trial accused of killing his wife of 23 years.
Trading his scraps for an orange jumpsuit.
In the quiet suburb of Aurora, Colorado, the life of Dr. James Craig appeared enviable. A respected dentist, a devoted husband, a father of 6. From the outside, he embodied the American ideal: family, faith, and professional success. But beneath the surface of that polished image, something was slowly decaying. James had grown up in the shadows of expectation, the son of hard-working parents, raised to believe that reputation was everything, that a man's worth was measured by his success and the smiles he maintained, no matter the pain he buried. He learned early to compartmentalize grief, failure, doubt, everything hidden neatly behind a practiced grin. When he met Angela, he believed he had found balance, the light to his ambition. She was kind, patient, grounded in faith, the one who steadied his restless spirit. Together, they built a life that others admired, a home filled with laughter, children, and the scent of morning coffee that marked the beginning of ordinary days. But ordinary days have a way of turning on themselves when lies are allowed to breathe. Behind every success, James felt a gnawing emptiness, a void that neither love nor achievement could fill. He craved recognition, control, validation. And when the world failed to feed that hunger, he began seeking it elsewhere, through secret habits, hidden desires, and later, something far darker. By his mid-40s, cracks had begun to show. His dental practice was struggling, finances were tight, and the facade of a perfect marriage was fraying. Yet in public, he smiled wider than ever, telling everyone life was good. If only they had known the truth, that the man who promised to protect his wife would soon become the architect of her destruction. And before this story begins to descend into betrayal and tragedy, if stories like this matter to you, stories that remind us how fragile trust can be, please take a moment to subscribe, to like, to share. Because the more we speak truth, the less darkness wins. Years earlier, when love was still pure, Angela used to sit by the kitchen window, watching her husband leave for work. She admired his dedication, the way he balanced patience and parenthood. To her, he was steady, a provider, a man of purpose. But even in those early years, there were signs, subtle, almost invisible. James was often distracted, restless, staring at nothing for long stretches. He lived in a mind full of unfinished plans, new clinics, new ventures, new thrills. Angela would ask him what was wrong, and he would smile and say, "Just tired." But tiredness was never the problem. He was searching for escape. The thrill of control had begun to replace the comfort of companionship. As their family grew, Angela's world revolved around their children, school runs, church, birthday cakes, small moments of grace that gave her joy. James's world revolved around ambition, the constant climb, the need to prove himself. In the evenings, he would retreat to his study, claiming paperwork or research. In truth, he was scrolling through social media, exchanging messages that would eventually spiral into something forbidden. It started harmlessly. An old colleague reaching out, casual conversations about work. But loneliness thrives where honesty fades. By the time Angela sensed distance, it had already become a chasm. She prayed, cried silently, convinced that if she just loved harder, things would get better. But James wasn't looking for better. He was looking for control. In his mind, he wasn't betraying her. He was managing his needs, convincing himself that a secret affair was harmless, a necessary distraction from stress. He had become a master of self-deception, rehearsing morality in public and breaking it in private. But guilt has a scent. It lingers. It seeps into tone, timing, and touch. Angela began to notice inconsistencies, work calls that came too late, sudden weekend trips, missing funds. Once, she found a strange message on his tablet. He dismissed it with practiced ease. She wanted to believe him, needed to believe him. But belief is not protection. One winter night, as snow pressed against their windows, Angela sat alone in their kitchen. She whispered to herself, "Something is wrong." And she was right. The mask was slipping. March 2023. Angela fell ill. It started with fatigue, then nausea, dizziness, confusion. Friends suggested rest. James told her it was probably stress. But Angela felt something deeper, something unnatural invading her body. She didn't know that her morning protein shakes, the ones her husband kindly prepared, were laced with poison. In those days, James carried two faces, the concerned husband at her bedside, and the calculating man alone in his office, searching online for death. Is arsenic detectable in autopsy? How many milligrams to kill a human? Can cyanide cause cardiac arrest? Search histories tell stories that mouths never will. He ordered potassium cyanide, masking it under dental supply shipments. At work, a staff member noticed a suspicious package. Inside was death disguised as chemicals. Angela's condition worsened. Her muscles weakened. Her breathing grew shallow. He watched her suffer, pretending confusion, showing sympathy, offering comfort, all while orchestrating her decline. At the hospital, doctors ran endless tests. Nothing explained her symptoms. Each time she improved, she mysteriously worsened again once home. She texted her husband, "I feel drugged." He replied, "Just rest. You're exhausted." The coldest lies are the ones wrapped in care. Nights became endless. The house echoed with the sound of oxygen machines and silent prayers. And still, James smiled for neighbors and patients, shaking hands, telling everyone life was good. If only they had known the truth, that the man who promised to protect his wife would soon become the architect of her destruction. Angela's hospital room became the stage for deception. Machines hummed softly, nurses moved quietly, and James stood by her side, playing the grieving husband. To doctors he was attentive, to friends he was broken. But in private, he monitored her death like an experiment. Days blurred, her organs began to fail. One nurse noticed his unusual behavior, his insistence on being alone during her treatments, his quiet manipulation of IV lines, the strange scent near her drinks. Then came the turning point, a package intercepted at his dental office. It contained a lethal compound, potassium cyanide. The staff reported it. Police began to investigate. Detectives found his online search history, chilling, methodical, deliberate. Can a toxicologist detect poison after death? Is it easy to buy cyanide? The evidence painted a picture more horrifying than anyone could believe. When Angela's sister confronted him, James denied everything, blaming her condition on medication reactions. But behind his eyes, something had already broken. The barrier between love and control, between protector and predator. Angela never regained consciousness. Her body failed, her eyes pleading for help, help that would never truly come. After Angela's death, the life James had constructed began to collapse like brittle glass. Detectives revealed a double life, a secret affair with another dentist, messages filled with longing and plans for a future that excluded his wife. Financial records exposed hidden debts and falsified transactions. Search histories confirmed the unthinkable, his step-by-step plan to poison. His own staff testified, describing the moment they discovered the deadly package and how James tried to downplay it.
One assistant said quietly, "He looked like a man rehearsing sadness." The betrayal rippled beyond his home. Patients stopped coming. His children withdrew in shame and confusion. Angela's family demanded justice. And then, more chilling revelations. While awaiting trial, James allegedly plotted to silence those who stood against him. Schemes whispered in prison halls, a desperate attempt to regain control. He had become the very thing he once feared, exposed, powerless, and known for his lies. But even monsters have moments of clarity. Behind bars, James began writing letters no one wanted to read, to his children, to God, to the memory of the woman he destroyed. Each line dripped with regret, but regret cannot reverse murder. As prosecutors prepared for trial, the narrative shifted, from grief to outrage. Angela's family demanded not just punishment, but truth. And truth, finally, was coming. The courtroom was silent as the verdict approached. Weeks of testimony had stripped James bare. Forensic experts described the poison's effects. Investigators recounted his web searches, his purchases, his deceit. Every detail of his manipulation came to light, every lie dismantled in front of the world. He sat motionless, avoiding the eyes of his children, as the prosecution described how he had poisoned their mother not once, but repeatedly, as her body deteriorated. The jury watched footage of him at the hospital, his hand resting on Angela's, eyes calculating, detached. When the verdict was read, guilty of first-degree murder, the illusion shattered completely. In that instant, the man who had once stood so tall was reduced to silence, swallowed by the weight of his choices. He did not cry. He did not speak. He simply stared ahead, as if realizing for the first time that the cage he built for others had become his own. The court sentenced him to life in prison without parole. Justice, long delayed, had finally arrived. Outside, Angela's family embraced, their tears carrying both sorrow and release. The world would remember James Craig not as a healer, but as a warning of what happens when deceit becomes destiny. Prison stripped him of everything: titles, possessions, pretense. For the first time, James was left alone with silence. In the mirror of his cell, he saw not a doctor or husband, but a hollow man who traded truth for control. Night after night, he replayed the past, the sound of Angela's laughter, the look in her eyes when she trusted him, the moment he watched her die. Regret became his new companion. He tried to rationalize it at first, claiming stress, depression, mental breakdown. But lies decay faster in solitude. In therapy sessions behind bars, he began to speak, slowly, awkwardly, haltingly, about his choices, his narcissism, his fear of failure. Some said he sought sympathy, others said he sought peace. Either way, the walls listened. He learned of his children's pain, the bullying, the silence, the shame of being the murderer's kids. That knowledge broke him more than the sentence ever could. In the stillness of nights, James began to write again, not for pity, but confession. He wrote that power had become his poison long before cyanide ever did, that control had blinded him to the sanctity of trust, and that somewhere in his heart, the man Angela once loved still begged to be redeemed, not by freedom, but by truth. Years passed. The world moved on, but the story of James Craig remained a scar on the heart of a community. Inside his cell, he found a kind of clarity, not the comforting kind, but the brutal one born from loss. He no longer asked for release. He no longer claimed innocence. Instead, he began to counsel others, warning inmates about the dangers of ego and secrecy. He wrote letters to his surviving children, not to erase what he'd done, but to acknowledge it, that their mother's life mattered. The truth, however late, was the only path left. Angela's family found some measure of peace in the justice system's verdict, but true closure came from faith, the belief that light eventually exposes darkness. Her sister once said, "He took her life but not her legacy. She loved until the end." And perhaps that is where rebirth truly lies, not in the redemption of the guilty, but in the resilience of those left behind. In documentaries, in news reports, in quiet conversations between strangers, Angela's story continues to echo. It's a reminder that evil often wears the mask of charm, and that love, even betrayed, still holds power beyond death. In his final years, James wrote a single page that the warden later allowed to be shared publicly. It read simply, "If I had told the truth sooner, maybe she'd still be alive. I destroyed the one person who believed in me. I live with that every day. My prison isn't these walls, it's my memory. Behind every smiling photograph, every perfect marriage, there can be a secret so dark it consumes everything. Justice may close a case, but truth keeps the world awake." Thank you for watching.